Welcome back to our series on unfinished learning in math. Today, we're going to talk about how to balance grade level content and prerequisite skills by empowering teachers at the unit level. Now, as a reminder, if you missed the last installment, we talked about annual planning or thinking across at the year-long level, making space to address unfinished learning in math, knowing that it's going to take more time when we are both moving forward with grade level content and also thinking about prerequisites that students still need. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, I would encourage you to go back and give it a listen. So for this to work, there is a necessary belief that you have to have and that your teaching staff must have too. And that is that we must move forward with grade level content while strengthening prerequisites. Okay, if you don't believe that, or if your staff does not believe that, then what's going to happen is they'll spend a lot of time teaching below grade level content before getting to grade level content. And so the balance of it, the ratio of that, it's going to be off. I just wanted to put that out there that this is something that you're going to want to talk with your staff about and make sure you're all on the same page that, we need to be working on these two things at the same time, working on them in tandem. We cannot press pause or, put a hold on grade level content until the students are caught up with everything that they've missed from previous grade levels. So I'm going to share with you a few tips today that can help you and your teachers with this idea of unit planning with a focus of how are we going to address unfinished learning. So tip number one is to prioritize the most critical prerequisites. So if you're looking at your units coming up, okay, what are the most critical prerequisite skills and understandings students need leading into this unit? And I have a blog post recommendation. It's a blog that I actually wrote a few years ago, and it's on the Aligned blog that you can find on achievethecore.org. And it's called Addressing Unfinished Learning in the Context of Grade Level Work. And I think that would be a helpful read for you if you haven't read it, and your teachers, because I talk a little bit more about this idea about how do you really think about which prerequisites are the most critical. There's also this great resource from the Achievement Network called Important Prerequisite Math Standards, and they build on this idea of a bridge, something that I introduced in the blog post that I just mentioned. And so we have these two different ideas here of, is the bridge up like it is here, this drawbridge, and you really cannot go across it unless you do something? Or is it more of a situation of heavy traffic where you can get across, it's just going to take a bit more time? And so what they've done in this resource is they've taken all of the grade level standards and color coded them by whether they will cause the bridge to be up if students are missing this, or if it's more of a heavy traffic situation. And so this document can really help teachers if they reference this as they are doing their unit planning to help them distinguish between which are the things that we really need to address on the front end of the unit, maybe even take 1 or 2 days to work on these things before moving into the grade level content. And what are the things that can be woven in as we move through the content? All right, tip number two is to keep diagnostic assessments simple. So once teachers have decided which prerequisite skills and understandings are the most important, they're going to want to have a little bit of data to help them see if students in fact have understanding of them or don't, and which students. But these can get a little bit unwieldy. I've seen diagnostics that are multiple pages, and trying to fit that in an already busy schedule of instruction can be tough. And then finding time to grade them, and then finding time to teach all of the skills um, that may be shown that students don't have, it can become quickly overwhelming. And so I really would encourage you to help your teachers just find simple ways to see if students, just to gauge students' current level of understanding, whether it be giving a 1 or 2 question exit ticket, maybe it's adding on an extra problem or two to a weekly quiz. Maybe it's doing some marker board practice, something like that, but something kind of simple where they can get a sense for if students have that prerequisite or if they need a little more work on it, but it's not taking away a lot of time from instruction, and it's not creating a lot more work for the teacher. Tip number 3 is to collaboratively determine the number of flex days per unit. So this is something that my team and I did. We had a lot of students with unfinished learning as well, as I mentioned in the first video. And so we knew we were just going to need some extra time, and we couldn't always predict which lesson would need that extra time. And so, if you don't set a number of days ahead of time, if you don't set this expectation or to come to consensus, what I've seen happen is that every lesson turns into a 2-day lesson. And if that happens, then you're going to run into a problem as the year progresses, right? Because you just won't get to those last few units at all. And that's not what we want. We found this to be very helpful. If our curriculum said that the unit typically took about 8 days, we usually calendared out about 10 or 11. And so that gave all the teachers a couple of flex days, and they knew that they could use those, as they saw fit. Maybe they put one on the front end to address the prerequisites. Maybe they saved one to say, I'm going to just wait and see which lesson we really need a little more work on. Or maybe they kind of knew ahead of time that, what, I already know I've taught this lesson before. It always takes a little bit longer for students to grasp this concept or skill. And so I'm going to calendar out 2 days from the get-go. But in any case, it really empowered the teachers to, feel like they had a little bit of breathing room, and that they had input, and that they had that ability to make decisions for what was going to work best for their students within that unit. But then there were also some, boundaries and some shared expectations that the unit would not go on for, as long as one might want for every single student to master every single skill, because that could go on for months and months. And then tip number 4 is to spiral content and provide opportunities for students to demonstrate their understanding over time. And so this goes really nicely with the last tip. If we're going to move on when not every single student has shown that they understand, that doesn't feel good to anyone, but it has to be done for us to actually be able to teach, all of the important content for the year. And so this is a way to say, it's not the end. The student, we're going to keep working on these things. We're going to revisit the skills and concepts in, maybe the do now or in the homework, or maybe there's another structure that teachers can think outside the box to provide. Maybe it's, an asynchronous time, some blended learning, computer programming, whatever, but there will be more time and more opportunities for students to learn it. And then they'll have more time to demonstrate their understanding, and their grade can get adjusted as they show that they are more proficient and that they have that deeper understanding. So who should do this? I would recommend that the math teachers themselves have this flexibility, and maybe that they have some support from a coach or a team leader, somebody that they can run their thinking by and see if there's another perspective that they're not, thinking about. And additionally, if they find that they really do need more than those couple of flex days, I would just encourage you to set that expectation that, if you need to go beyond those, like, let's have a conversation before that happens, just so we can decide if that's a good idea. And if so, where is that time coming from? So I would suggest doing unit planning, about 5 to 7 days before the next unit begins. That will give teachers time to think about how they're going to diagnose where students are, and, which of those prerequisites they're going to hone in on. And is there an existing structure that you can leverage for this to happen in? Is there collaborative planning time? Is there a PLC? Maybe are there, Friday PD times that you could let teachers break into teams when there is this change of the unit, so that they can go deep with the standards and really create their plan and their strategy for how are they going to move forward with grade level while weaving in the prerequisites that students need, and have some time to work together on that plan. And then the why here, if I can leave you with this why, it's really what we're trying to do here is to create guardrails to ensure that the time and the support are balanced so that students are getting that access to grade level content and they are getting the support that they need for any skills and concepts that are really essential for them to make meaning of the grade level content, that there's time for that too, but that the two are balanced in a way that makes sense and that is equitable. So, action step number one is to provide resources to help teachers prioritize the most critical prerequisites. And I named a couple of those in this video. And then secondly, to choose a low lift method to assess students' understanding. And then action step number two is to have a discussion with your math team about how to make the most of those unit flex days. Set expectations to stay within the set number of days so that we don't get to October, November, or December and you find out that, uh-oh, we're still in unit two and how did that happen? And so if I can leave you with anything today, it's to remember that we must move forward with grade level content while strengthening those prerequisites. All right, I hope this was helpful, and I'll catch you next time when we talk about daily lesson planning.